You could say I've become obsessed with the Alice layout, thanks in no small part to my recent Ava build we did, but today we're talking about a more attainable board that might spark the same obsession in you, the Keychron Q8. Keychron's a name that has become synonymous with recommendations for those new to the hobby who want something they can just add to their cart and go to town with. We'll go ahead and just start with the typing test, then move into what makes this board tick, or rather, clack. A huge shout out and thank you to mechanicalkeyboards.com for sending over the Keychron Q8 and the Frozen Slush linears for us to take a look at today. Unlike the Q8, we are keeping the linears to use in some future content, so stay tuned to see those featured again. And as always, links for everything in today's video are down in the video's description, and thank you so much for checking out mechanicalkeyboards.com with creator code TheManicGeek. Buying the board directly from Keychron sees a significant price premium over what they charge at mechanicalkeyboards.com for the same board. I also can't seem to find the rotary knob model on the MK website, though it should carry roughly a $10 premium. We'll assume, since I got it from MK, that the pricing for this board is roughly $159 US. Included accessories were sparse, only including some spare fasteners and a USB-C to USB-C cable with a Type A adapter, a nice touch for Mac users and a minimal inconvenience for PC users. There's also a toggle at the back of the board to let you switch between Mac and PC mode, the only spot where the finish was rough, and the board is fully QMK and VIA compatible for ease of programming and RGB lighting control. The standard block-on wedge design is sculpted, providing some broad chamfers along the rear of the wedge and giving the board a bit more character. Typing angle and front height are also quite comfy at 5 degrees and 19.8 millimeters respectively, and with the south-facing 5-pin hotswap sockets, you should be good to go with any switch and cap combo you want. The case is all aluminum, with good fitment, clean anodized finish, and some nice quality of life built into the top case with the addition of some silicone bumpers to act as a force brake mod. As we heard in the typing test earlier, it seems to work pretty well. Gasket mounting is something that can go horribly wrong with a board, but here it's surprisingly bouncy for it coming stock with a steel plate, though it's not flex you'll fully experience without a more flexy plate. 4 of the gaskets weren't installed when I opened this, 2 in the center front of the board, and the 2 top gaskets on the left and right side, though it doesn't seem as though you actually need them, so test the board out before you commit to installing them for personal preference. For acoustic treatment, we get plate foam and this really thick tape mod. The plate foam is fine, but the tape mod is a weird little guy. It doesn't really stick too well to the back of the PCB due to it being so thick, which left this board out of the box, making a strange ticking sound near the back of the board. With some carefully applied pressure, you can get it to conform and stick a bit more, but I still recommend replacing this with your own tape mod should you desire it. It's also worth noting that while the tape mod isn't required, without it, it's possible to bottom out the PCB on the case, which could create a short circuit. The stock stabilizers here are serviceable, but they were pre-lubed, and pre-lubed kind of poorly, which led me to having to basically retune all of them myself anyway. Dear keyboard manufacturers, if you cannot get a solid lubing process down for your stabilizers, don't bother with it. I would rather tune them myself out of the box than have to clean off someone else's failed lube job because they were either forced to rush it or there's not a good process in place for getting it done. Some stabs had lube on the wrong side of the stab housing entirely, none of them had lube on the outside of the stem, and half the stabs rattled like crazy. As we heard in the typing test, they can be made to sound more or less fine, but it took quite a bit of lube injected into the stem to get the ticking to stop, and they're still sort of scratchy. Our finished build, consisting of Purple Slush linears and Cherry P-bow, turned out pretty good, at a total cost of around $250 for the parts. So do we feel good about the board in general? While my experience is currently limited to custom stacked acrylic options from folks like SM Keyboards and Switch Guitar, I do feel like there's some opportunities to provide a better overall experience with the Q8. First of all, I'd offer the aluminum or FR4 plate as the stock plate option for this keyboard. They do sell them as standalone here, but Again, I would rather see either aluminum or FR4 in place of steel as the option this board comes with by default. Second, either work on the factory lube or maybe just omit it entirely. Hell, for that, maybe just include Duroc V2s instead of whatever these stabilizers were. Third, work on that tape mod. It honestly kind of feels just like sort of thick wax paper that has an adhesive on one side. Look to Tiger Light for an excellent factory-produced tape mod. Then there's the topic of competition. There's not really much, at least not at direct price parity. Boards like the ACO ACR Pro Alice Plus are probably the closest competitors, though they're typically a bit less spendy, and I don't have any on hand to speak to them directly. If you wanted something really inexpensive to get into an Alice board, Keychron also has their own V8, with a more attractive entry price, but lacks gasket mounting and alternate plate options. In general, the Keychron Q8 is a good board that falls just short of being a great board. That said, even at the listed Keychron price, there's not a ton of in-stock Alice boards that compete with the overall quality, materials, and features the Q8 brings to the table. Pun intended. In the meantime, check out our latest video on the best budget TKL, if that's more your speed. And once again, huge shout out and thank you to mechanicalkeyboards.com for sending out the Keychron Q8 and the Purple Slush linears for us to take a look at today. And a thank you to you for checking out at mechanicalkeyboards.com using creator code TheManicGeek and for making it to the end of the video. Remember, toss us a thumbs up on the way out if you like what you saw, get subscribed and notified so you don't miss any of our content when it goes live, and we'll catch you all next time.